Indigestion, heartburn, reflux. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Ask Dr. Pickel show. So if you have indigestion, heartburn, reflux, and symptoms related to that, then this is definitely for you. So when a patient comes in and they say, hey, Dr. Pickel, my doctor said I had too much stomach acid, so they put me on this antacid, either medication or over the counter or something, then we've got to take a step back and say, wait a second, you're making too much acid in your stomach? Okay, so the stomach makes an acid. It's called hydrochloric acid, and the stomach is built for it. It makes it. We need it. Actually, it has a bunch of functions which we're going to go over. But if someone says, "Hey, you've got too much acid," it's probably not hydrochloric acid, because when we eat our food, that acid breaks down our food so we can digest it. That means there's some other acid involved. Something else is going on here. So let's dive right into this. Okay, so hypochlorhydria is what it's called, which means low stomach acid. It's not too much, it's not enough. So if your stomach doesn't make enough good acid, hydrochloric acid, then that food just sets in your stomach. I just ate this big meal, setting in my gut, inside of my body's close to about 100 degrees. Yeah. So what happens to food when you heat it up in an enclosed space? It starts to ferment. It starts to rot. And what happens when food rots? It makes gases from the fermentation process, and it makes acids. And these acids are not good acids. They're the ones that actually burn, that cause heartburn, reflux, indigestion, affect other symptoms. And our stomach was not built for those. Our esophagus was not built for those. So then we start to get these symptoms. And then also, of course, if you produce gases, those have to escape up or down too, so we can get more symptoms from that. So some symptoms that can occur are, of course, heartburn. Yeah, that's when it goes from your stomach. That acid actually comes up your esophagus, can go into your throat. Sometimes people will get it in their mouth and be, oh, that just burned inside my mouth, or I could taste the acid in my mouth, which is the reflux side. And of course, if heartburn's occurring, that means it's probably burning the lining of your stomach too, which is not a good thing at all. And then, of course, what do we get? We can get bloating, because those gases expand the stomach and expand the small intestine. And then we can, of course, either gas or burping or things like that after meals. People say, oh, I burp after all my meals. Well, yeah, this is usually gases being produced from foods fermenting. Nausea. Now, I put before and after eating, because some people, they eat a meal and they're like, oh, that really made me nauseated after I ate. Yeah, that's usually low stomach acid. You're not digesting your food. It's fermenting, and that can make you feel nauseated. But also, some people are like, yeah, I don't even have an appetite. I don't even want to eat. I feel nauseated just thinking about food. We'll talk about that more in a moment here. Now, feeling full easily. Yeah, if the stomach isn't digesting and food's just sitting there, it's not going to take much to fill your stomach up before you feel full. So it's not really going to take much. And then offensive breath. So if that food is fermenting, those gases can travel up, and then you breathe them out, and people are like, oh, I smell what he just ate mixed with some acid, or maybe even worse. And then, of course, difficulty BMs, because that food does have to eventually move down your intestines and exit. But if it's undigested food, it's not going to move very well. Sometimes that can be constipation. Sometimes your system may digest it to a degree, and it could become more of a diarrhea. So it could kind of go both ways. Now, other factors involved here is we can get some things that affect this, that kind of tie into this. And one of those is stress. If you are stressed out, then definitely this is going to lower your ability to make good acid. Basically, your digestive tract says, hey, increase the fight or flight. The fight or flight system's increased because of stress. This person is running from a bear, or something bad's going on. Forget digestion. Let's just get blood supplied to muscles and other areas, so we can actually get away from whatever danger is occurring in our life. So if you're living in a fight or flight mode, if you are chronically stressed, yeah, this is going to start to break down your digestive tract, start to affect your ability to digest foods, which is not good. Now, age can come into play. A lot of times as we get older, yeah, they'll say, hey, your digestion becomes less, you release less acid. Yeah, possibly. I think that's kind of an easy out for doctors to say, oh, it's just age. Well, yeah, it could, but some people digest fantastically and they're 80 plus years old. So I don't see that you can always put that in the box. Now, gut inflammation, though, that's definitely a factor. If your gut's inflamed due to bad guys in your gut, like infective agents or chemicals or heavy metals or food intolerances that keep the gut swollen and inflamed, then yeah, you're not going to make as much acid and you're not going to digest or absorb foods well at all. And then another common one is an H. pylori infection. In fact, the first thing that's supposed to be looked at, if you have any type of reflux, heartburn, anything, first thing they're supposed to do is look for this H. pylori infection. The problem is it doesn't always show up. If you do an endoscopy and they stick a tube down your throat to look for it and maybe even biopsy, doesn't always, it's not 100%. So this is a tough one to see because sometimes it doesn't just live in the stomach. Sometimes it lives in the small intestine. And if you biopsy like 3 little tiny areas, you could miss it. So it's not always if they do the H. pylori test, it's not always correct. And there's other ways to do that too. There's actually one where you breathe into this bag after drinking some stuff, and then you get the gases out, and then they can look for H. pylori that way. That's actually, I'd say, a better method of doing it. Some of these labs will do the breath test, and you can ask your doctor, say, hey, I'd like to do the breath test. Or there's another way too, is if it is down in more of the small intestine or further down in the stomach, this H. pylori bacteria, then they can actually do a stool test too. So it can show up in different ways. And then antacids. If you've taken antacid drugs for a period of time, you're already lowering all the acid in your stomach, the good and the bad. So the problem with antacid drugs, that's why really you're not supposed to take them for very long at all, because this will cause deficiencies. This will cause inability to break down all your food now. Yeah, you don't have heartburn anymore, but now you're deficient in a ton of things. So these are the inherent problems that kind of go on with this. Okay, let's go to the next page here. Now, here's the interesting thing that kind of happens here. So basically, our stomach makes this hydrochloric acid there. My thing's not really highlighting too well. And so what happens then is that hydrochloric acid triggers your pancreas to release digestive enzymes. So number one, if you're already low in hydrochloric acid and you're not making it, you're not going to trigger your pancreas and you're not going to produce digestive enzymes. So your food's not going to break down anyway. These digestive enzymes help to break down proteins. They help to break down carbs. They help to break down fats. It's so important that you release these enzymes to actually digest and absorb the food that you eat. So, and then the next thing that's going to be a problem is in order to contract your gallbladder to release bile, which breaks down and emulsifies fats and oils, you have to have hydrochloric acid release. So if you release hydrochloric acid, yeah, then that can contract. But if not, if this is going on, yeah, even your gallbladder is not going to contract properly. If that occurs over years, can you imagine that gallbladder starts to fill up with gunk and sludge and maybe even stones because it's not ever really contracting well? Absolutely. So these are the problems that can happen. And then what happens then is now we're starting to get low in protein. Deficiency occurs. Not only just say protein, but amino acids that come from those proteins, collagen protein, different things that we have to live. Our body is going to be like, hey, you know what? He might be eating this, or he or she might be eating this great protein, eating a meat or a veggie, but we're not digesting and absorbing it. So every time you eat, all that fantastic food is ending up in the toilet, and your body's like, what? I don't have anything. You know what? Break down the muscles to get what we need. So your body will actually start to break you down to get what it needs if you're causing deficiency. Another one is these fatty acids. So fats and oils that we have to have. I mean, all the oils in our skin, our central nervous system, all of our hormones, they're made from these fats and oils. And if we aren't making bile, if we're not making digestive enzymes or releasing those properly, then we have decreased fatty acids and we're going to suffer. And then, of course, vitamins and minerals in order to break those down, because you could be taking some fantastic supplements. Think, gosh, I'm taking all the best stuff. But it's ending up in the toilet because you're not digesting it in the first place. You're not releasing hydrochloric acid to break that down. You're not releasing the enzymes to break these things down so you can actually absorb them into the small intestine. So what's going to start to happen? Well, you're going to start to notice, hey, you know what? I'm bruising real easily. My capillaries are either breaking, or I start to notice a lot more capillaries in my face, like my cheeks and my nose. You start to see little red blood vessels there rising. The fingernails start to peel and they can become brittle. You can start to get dry skin because, again, what do you have to have in order to make the oils in your skin? You got to have fatty acids. What do you have to do to have healthy nails? You got to have protein, healthy skin, protein, and of course, vitamins and minerals and antioxidants to protect it. And then, low hormones. If you can't absorb fatty acids, your hormones are going to start to drop low. Anemias and deficiencies. Yeah, if you're not absorbing vitamins and minerals, let's say like iron or B vitamins, you're going to start to get an anemia. You're going to get less oxygen to your cells, and that's going to make everything go wrong. And just so many other potential deficiencies that can occur. I mean, just a lot can happen here. You can increase your risk of ulcer if your stomach lining is chronically inflamed because of this bad acid in this fermentation process. Yeah, you're upping your risk for ulcer. When they say, "Oh, I got an ulcer because I've been stressed out." How did stress affect your stomach? Why didn't it affect your left foot? You see what I mean? So the thing is we've got to question these things. And if the doctor says, "Oh, the stress caused this," well, why? Why did it do that? Well, it did it with this mechanism. Basically, the stress affected your fight or flight system. That shut down your digestive tract. And it just goes on and produces this whole effect. And then, of course, we can get low energy. And yeah, if you're not absorbing things, fuel, if you're not absorbing proteins, fatty acids, minerals, vitamins, yeah, you're running on kindling. You're running on sugars and carbs. Sugars and carbs don't need a lot to digest and break them down. They're going to be like kindling, little tiny molecules that can get right through a swollen gut. So it's not going to take much. But the problem with kindling is it burns fast and it's gone. So you're going to start to get blood sugar problems, and you're going to start to get low energy. Constipation, diarrhea, yeah, if you're not digesting it, if you're not absorbing it, it's eventually got to exit, and it's not going to be pretty. And then brain fog, because gut inflammation and brain inflammation go hand in hand, but also these deficiencies start to affect the nervous system and your ability to function and have proper emotions. Insomnia, yeah, if you're not absorbing, that's going to cause blood sugar fluctuations. That's going to put you more into a fight or flight mode, and insomnia is going to occur, and you're not going to have good blood sugar while you're sleeping. Your adrenals are going to start to have problems. And then lowered immune system. So if you don't have necessary nutrients in your body, you have to have proteins to that. Basically, a lot of your immune system soldiers, they're made of proteins. And then, of course, a lot of the signaling that occurs needs proteins, fatty acids, minerals, vitamins. All these things come into play. So very important that you're making enough stomach acid, that you're digesting what you eat, and that you're not having these issues. So, if a doctor says, "Hey, no big deal, you've got this you got this stomach acid issue, you got heartburn, reflux, indigestion. Here's your antacid. See how it goes. If that one doesn't work, or if it stops working, we'll put you on a stronger one, or hey, just go on down the road and we'll just keep watching it." Well, yikes, huh? So number one, ask that doctor, what's causing this? Why? Why am I having this? Yeah, I can take that to suppress symptoms, but what's going on? Do I have an H. pylori infection? Do I have one of these other issues that's going on? And then in the meantime, while you're trying to figure out the whole thing, I would say, yeah, you might have to take some digestive enzymes. So that can be top of the list there to help you at least break things down. You might have to which that'll help you break down some fats. You might have to also take something to help break down or emulsify those fats more. Some people actually take a supplement. It's made from ox bile, and it can substitute that bile, and that actually is very effective. And then another one that people will a lot of times do is they'll take some hydrochloric acid. They'll take what's called beta-ene hydrochloride, which is actually hydrochloric acid. Or another way to do that is sometimes doing like some apple cider vinegar or something like that. So again, there's things that can be done, but those are temporary fixes until you get to the cause of the problem. So, and that's what we find out. We find out, hey, what's underneath this? What's causing this? Deal with that. And then, maybe in the meantime, we have to use something, but these things should not be long-term, because they usually don't give you long-term relief. All right. Hopefully everybody got some great information out of this today. God bless, and I will see you next time.